We're in the second week of our series called Awkward. Why is it called that? Well, it's not because you need more awkward experiences in your life. We all have plenty of those. It's because sometimes talking about stuff that really matters in your life can be a little awkward. But we think that church is the best place to have those important conversations about big topics in our life, no matter how awkward they may be. And that's why in this series, we're talking a lot about sexual integrity. Yes, you heard me right. We're talking about your desires at church, and yes, we know it's going to be awkward, and that's okay. We think you can handle it, and not just that, we think it's good for us to talk about it, because whether we realize it or not, God cares about our desires, and He cares about what we do with them. And because it's important to Him, it's important to us. Some of you may be really interested in this conversation because you're curious and have a lot of questions, and that's great. That's normal and healthy. Or maybe for you, you feel embarrassed or awkward even thinking I'm talking about this stuff. I've been there before, and that's totally fine too. Some of you may even be wondering why we're talking about sex at church, and you might not even be interested or have any questions about it yet. And again, that's okay. All of these feelings are normal and healthy. No matter where you are right now, when it comes to thinking or not thinking about things like this conversation is for you because God's perfect plan for our lives applies to each of us. And we want to help you develop healthy and positive thoughts and behaviors when it comes to your desires now, so that they can impact your life both today and in the future. Now, before we get into the conversation, I want to have a little fun. I think we all probably have something that we're totally passionate about. I'm going to give you a list of things that a lot of teenagers are passionate about. And if you're passionate about one of the things I say, I want you to give a thumbs up. And if you're not passionate about it, give me a big thumbs down. Everybody get your thumbs ready. Gaming, social media, school, a dating relationship, sports, your pet, your friends, being outside, Netflix, music, fashion. Maybe you can relate to one of these things, and maybe you're passionate about soccer or the latest TikTok trend or makeup tutorials on YouTube, surfing, hiking, the latest season of your show on Netflix. Maybe you're really into band or art or theater or football or church. Maybe you're passionate about a cause or a relationship or a person in your life. Whatever it is, everybody knows that you love it because you talk about it all the time. You think about it a lot and you give a lot of your time and energy to it. After all, you're passionate about it. While there's nothing wrong with being passionate about things, problems can start when passions become obsessions. So how can we tell if we're feeling an obsession or a passion? Well, a passion is typically a love or excitement for something that doesn't cause us to ignore everything else in our lives. It usually makes the other part of our lives better. So when you're passionate about soccer, you practice a lot and work hard to be the best player on the team. When you're passionate about being a good friend, you spend time with your friends and think about how you can include or get to know others. When you're passionate about art, you paint or draw or sketch when you have the time so that you'll get better at it. But when it's time to focus on your schoolwork, or you need to get enough sleep, or your mom asks you to take a break, you do it. You step away from what you're focused on or passionate about with no problem. An obsession, on the other hand, has a tendency to take over our lives. It controls our thoughts and motivates our actions. It's what we think about all the time. It's the first thing we consider when making a decision about anything, and that's because it impacts all of the other areas of our life, usually not in a good way. When you're obsessed with video games, you stay up all night to play, don't return texts or DMs from friends when you're gaming. You flip out on your little brother if he tries to interrupt, and as a result, you start to suffer because you're not getting enough sleep or spending time with other people or focusing on other important things in your life. When you're obsessed with social media, you spend most of your day planning or posting to your profile. You zone out of in-person conversations with friends to focus on the likes that you're getting behind the screen. And because of that, even though your social media is awesome, your real-life relationships are not doing well. Or maybe you're obsessed with a person you're dating. You talk about them all the time. You disobey your house rules because you want to talk to them later than you're allowed to, and you only want to spend time with them. And as a result, other parts of your life aren't the same. You're breaking rules, hurting friends, isolating other people from what's going on in your relationship. That one relationship is controlling every decision you make. See what I mean? Obsessions have a way of controlling us. They motivate us to do things that we wouldn't do otherwise. They can even cause us to put other relationships at risk for the sake of them. We're willing to get in trouble, lose friends, or make choices we might regret, all because we want to give all of our time and energy to one thing, our obsession. So what does this have to do with our desires? Well, remember that when we use the word desire, we simply mean a strong feeling or wanting to have or do something. And when we talk about sexual desires, we're talking about sexual things that we feel, think about, or want to do. And understanding this is so important because if we're not careful, our desires can become more than just desires. They can turn into more than just something that we're interested in or want or are curious about. They can become obsessions that control us and lead us into making decisions that are not the best for us. So today we're going to read something written a long time ago by a man named Paul. I think he had a lot of wisdom and guidance to share when it comes to interests, passions, and obsessions. Paul was one of the major writers of the Bible, and when he was alive, Paul spread the word about Jesus and what it meant to follow him. And part of the way he did that was by writing letters to other Christians to encourage them and to help them keep living God's best for their lives. Today we're actually going to take a look at one of those letters. Let's check it out. I am allowed to do all things, but not everything is good for me to do. Even if I am free to do all things, I will not do them if I think that it would be hard for me to stop when I know I should. 1 Corinthians 6:12. I love this verse because it's so clear. Basically what Paul is saying is, yeah, I have the freedom to do anything I want, but all the stuff I want to do, it's not all good for me all the time. So even though I can do it, I'm not going to do it if it's hard for me to give it up. Now, I don't know about you, but I can definitely relate to what Paul said here. I know exactly what it feels like to be so excited to have the freedom to do something that I really wanted to do, but I also know that I have to be careful to keep what I'm passionate about from becoming an obsession that controls me, an obsession that I struggle to walk away from or stop. Now, as a middle school or high school student, I think that you probably get it too. Think about it. The older you get, the more opportunities that you begin to have. You're starting to have more freedom. But as Paul reminded us here, you have to be wise about how you use that freedom. And I think this is especially important when we're talking about things like dating and sex and our desires. In those areas of our life, you're getting more and more opportunities to learn about, think about, or even experience them as you grow and mature. Opportunities to date or see PG-13 movies, opportunities to finally have that app or social media platform that you've been dying to have, opportunities to read more mature books, opportunities to look up pictures online, opportunities to even start a physical relationship with somebody else. These are things that you might have the opportunity to do. But when it comes to all this stuff, I think we have to remember what Paul was getting at here. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. We might want to do something, but that doesn't mean that we should. We might have the freedom to do it, but that doesn't mean that it's the best thing for us. When we become obsessed with something, the line gets blurry between what we can do and what we should do. And even if something is good for us, that obsession can begin to control us. And all of that freedom that we were so excited about having as we grew up, all of that freedom that God gives us to live our best lives and choose what's healthy and good for us, well, we're letting that freedom get away. And we're letting the person or thing that we've shifted our attention to control us. And that's not what any of us wants for you. It's certainly not the good design that God has for your life. So remember, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Now see, it's not that God doesn't want you to be passionate about anything or attracted to anyone. In fact, it's the opposite. He wants you to have a great, big, amazing, full life. I know because Jesus said it himself while he was here on earth. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. God wants you to have a full and exciting life. He wants us to be people who are full of passion and excited about things that we get to experience. And remember, he designed desires and attraction to be part of living your best life. If you find someone attractive, who do you think made that person? And who do you think gave you the ability to appreciate that person? God did. And if you appreciate the way someone talks or thinks, you are appreciating a creation of God. And you have the freedom to express that God-given attraction in a way that honors ourselves, others, and God. In other words, you can practice sexual integrity. So what does that mean for you and me? I think if we want to live the free and full lives that God wants us, we need to start being honest about what we might be paying too much attention to. I think we've got to get real about our obsessions. So let's start by doing these two things. First, recognize the obsession. How can we know when a passion has turned into an unhealthy obsession? Well, we can start by looking at what consumes and controls our times and thoughts. If it's taking us away from other important things or people, it probably has become an obsession. Texting the person you like, no matter who you are with or what time it is, ignoring your friends to spend time with the person you're dating, being furious with your parents for taking your phone away, those are all signs that you're moving toward an unhealthy obsession. Start to recognize and name those obsessions so that you can be sure they don't consume you. And two, create boundaries. After you recognize those obsessions, the next step is to find some balance in life by creating boundaries. You can start by talking to a trusted adult, like your small group leader, to help you create some limits for yourself. And then you can figure out the first step to begin changing those behaviors. You might have to make some tough choices, like breaking up with someone or having your parents put controls on your phone or limiting your screen time. But honestly, those things are so worth it in the end. You'll be getting back the freedom to make healthier, wiser choices for yourself both today and in the future. Now, for some of you who are struggling with more difficult things, this step might feel awkward, and this is going to take a lot of courage. It might be hard for you to talk to somebody about the obsession that you have. Maybe you're embarrassed by it or worried that people will think it's strange. You might think that no one else struggles with what you're struggling with and that no one will understand. But the person that you talk to can handle it. They won't think you're weird or crazy or a bad person. They'll think that you're brave for opening up and taking the first step on your path for creating boundaries. God cares about what you do with your desires, and He wants us to guard ourselves from letting our interests become obsessions. When it comes to sexual things, He wants us to remember that even when we can do something, that doesn't mean that it's His best for us. Developing healthy thoughts and behaviors when it comes to this stuff is just one way that we can not only honor God and ourselves, but also love and respect the people around us. And when we do this, not only will it help us have better, healthier relationships and make wiser choices today, but it also helps our future relationships and experiences too. Now, I know this is difficult. I know that a conversation like this one can be awkward, but I also know that it's worth having because they're helping us take even the smallest step towards God's best in all areas of our lives. And remember, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.